When I was a kid, I saw a picture of Count Orlok, and it just had a kind of haunting atmosphere that really stayed with me. I've been thinking about how to do this story and how to make it my own for a very long time.
Nosferatu is a gothic tale of obsession about a 19th century young woman and this ancient vampire who haunts her and brings about horror all around him.
He is coming.
I'm just excited for this retelling of this classic and incredible story.
I was such a fan of Rob's movies going into this. I just really wanted to do justice to him and his vision because it's something that he's wanted to make since he was 8 years old.
It is like a dream. Standing before me was death, but I'd never been so happy.
Our intention is to make something that is both gothic and romantic, but actually truly a scary horror movie.
I'm ready.
All the actors really put every bit of themselves into it to make it the most dread-filled and atmospheric we possibly could.
Robert had a very particular vision for Orlok.
Nothing compares to this version of the character. It's genuinely scary.
It's a different look than we've seen of any vampire character. You feel the dark forces coursing through his body.
I could totally see how this story and its characters would lean so much towards Robert's work as a director. He's also so attentive to detail and really questioning why these characters are doing what they're doing and why they're thinking and their motivations.
I think that's what Robert brings to his movies, such artistic depth. Nosferatu is like no other movie I've ever done.
Only you can redeem us.
It's the scariest performance of my career. I've never been more scared in playing a character.
Come to me.
I'm blown away by the accuracy of the recreation of all these historical things that make the world so authentic. And even down to the fine details like Orlok's crypt.
Orlok's coffin is quite spectacular. It's based on lots of research of mainly Polish coffins. The real ones like have skulls on the side of them, you know, and like how sick is that?
I remember just thinking, wow. They're not building sets, they're building a world. Even the costumes on this film are so phenomenal. Every single thing is so authentic, so beautiful. I can't wait for audiences to see this film.
Everyone really put every bit of themselves into it to experience the scope and the scariness. Please go to the cinema and see this one.
We are here encountering the vampire, Nosferatu.
He's coming.
He is coming. He is coming.
As a kid, I was really, really afraid of stuff. And in making horror movies, I get to explore fear and also control it. Hi, I'm Robert Eggers, and this is the origin story of Nosferatu. When I was about 8 or 9, with the help of my mom, we acquired a VHS of Nosferatu. And I was just really struck by how this version distilled the Dracula story into a very simple fairy tale. The past really speaks to me. So it's most interesting for me to think about who we are and where we're going from where we came from. When I was in high school, I had the idea of doing Nosferatu as a stage play that would be a silent film on stage with black and white makeup, black and white costumes, and super titles. And I thought maybe it was a silly idea, but my friend Ashley Kelly Tata said, no, that's a cool idea. So we directed it together, and it cemented the fact that I wanted to be a director when I grew up. With your first feature, you have all these ideas about the movies you've wanted to make that have been brewing and growing with you, and then they all come out in your first feature, which becomes like very personal because of that, even if you're still finding your footing and finding your voice. But because Nosferatu's been with me for so long, this arguably is personal because I've been working on this film for 10 years or more. It was challenging to find something that truly belonged to me. It required writing a rich backstory for Orlok and a very rich backstory for Ellen so that I could then do my simple fairy tale, but with a different kind of perspective. It's sort of a strange feeling to actually be excited to share the movie for real. That weird feeling makes me a little more vulnerable about it as well, but I hope people enjoy it.
We are here encountering the undead plague carrier, Nosferatu.
Watched this alone in a dark room last night. Never ideal. So so terrified. But congratulations anyway. I guess to ask you first, both of you, about your characters, maybe starting with you, Lily. You seem to have an innate understanding of Ellen, I think, and the way that the characters portrayed that exploration of that 19th century perception of the link between sexuality and hysteria, as it were. You know, what was so interesting about Ellen?
There were so many facets to her that were so exciting to me. I think also knowing that Rob has wanted to make this for so long, the character, you know, in the script, she was already written with so much complexity, with like so much nuance and just like so much to dive into emotionally. I think she's someone who, you know, is struggling a lot and has a lot of, you know, tension inside of her, and who's kind of torn between, you know, the earthly realm and kind of the realm of death in a way. I think she's like a kind of a person who has one foot in this door, one foot in another, and so that, you know, we all know that like at the time period there was not a lot of room for women to be anything other than just like a good wife and a good mother. And so, you know, Ellen is from that point of view far from that, and she's suffering from much more than I think, you know, people at the time or men at the time were willing to deal with. And you see that in how some of the characters treat her, and you know, she's much more than they want to deal with. And I think that it speaks to, you know, a greater idea of kind of just like the complexities of a woman, and how much of that we're actually willing to love and accept. You know, I think that even still today there are, you know, there are aspects of that ring true, you know, like how much of yourself are you willing to accept and still love yourself until the world makes you feel like you're like too hard to love, you know? Getting right in there.
That's really interesting. But also, I suppose for you, it's a really iconic image of this young man riding off to Transylvania, isn't it? You know, and not knowing what he's going to encounter. So, you know, your motivation for playing Thomas.
Yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, that was a huge part of it. But also this element of what you were just saying there. I think, you know, Thomas can't understand Ellen, but I think he is caring. He's not as harsh as some of the other male characters. He does.
Totally.
He wants to kind of, he doesn't brush it aside, but he's really hopeful for the future, their future, which he is misguided and naive in thinking that, you know, this better job and earning more money will provide what they need to put this difficult past behind them. And he can't, as much as he'd want to, he can't hear or understand what it is that you're experiencing. And that's kind of the tragedy, I suppose, of him as the character, because he can't conceive what's to come, and then comes face to face with this terror and horror, and realizes that he's been, you know, wrong about so many things in terms of their relationship, but also in terms of the world and what exists. So that's the big transformation for him.
I mean, I know that Nosferatu has just meant so much to you. You know, why has it resonated with you, and is still resonating with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, when I first saw the Murnau film, like on a VHS, like of a bad 16mm print, like it had a kind of magic to it that felt like real. You know, Max Schreck's makeup, because the image was so degraded, felt like you were just watching a vampire. You know, and the way that Murnau and Galeen adapted the story, it's like it's a simple fairy tale, and there's so much mystery around it, and so there's so much room for your imagination to go wild. Certainly it did as a child, and then I was able to kind of, you know, amplify my knowledge about occult and folklore and hysteria and 19th century medicine, and do something that was my own take of this story while still keeping the basic movements of the story the same.
And you mean, you know quite a lot about Nosferatu, of course, because you have played Max as well some time ago. So did you brought an understanding of what Nosferatu is about?
Very different movie, but certainly I knew the original very, very well, because for Shadow of the Vampire, even though it was very different, I copied Max Schreck. That's the way I approached the character. So I was very familiar with the original material. But of course, this movie you know, is inspired by that, but there's also so many other influences.
For both of you, can you remember the first time you might have either seen or heard Bill?
So we heard him in the rehearsal rooms, and I was like, wow, this is unexpected, but so perfect and true, and felt rooted in so much history, and was completely imposing and powerful. So it was his voice first, and then you can talk about physically what.
Yeah, I mean, I think hearing the voice, like Nick said, it was, you know, so perfect, so terrifying and huge, you know, just the recording of it. And then, like, so impressive that it felt almost like hard to match to like an actual like human body that was producing this voice. Yeah. And so then when I did my first like rehearsal with Bill, he was just, you know, normal, like wearing like a normal outfit, but then doing the voice, and I was saying like I was like couldn't even make the connection between this like completely human person that was in front of me and this petrifying demonic voice that was coming out of him. And so then when I first saw, you know, Orlok in his full form like come to life, I was like, yeah, that's who the voice belongs to, you know, and yeah, it was incredibly impressive. His, you know, performance is like completely transformative and yeah, completely incredible.
It seems like a very successful partnership between the two of you in the films. What keeps you working together?
He gives me fun stuff to do, and I enjoy being on his sets because they're so detailed, so thoughtful. Proper balance of passion, fun, and challenge.
Could you talk a little bit about transforming Bill into Count Orlok, and also the use of language in the film, and what language you wanted, you know, him to speak?
Well, he speaks when he's doing his spells. He speaks ancient Dacian, which is a dead language, and it is the Dacians were the most likely the people who became ethnic Romanians in Romania, and obviously Orlok's from Transylvania. He is, you know, what I attempted to do with him visually is make him look like a dead Transylvanian nobleman would actually have looked like, which, you know, is a different costume than we've ever seen, and different hairstyle than we've ever seen for this character, you know, but it was a massive transformation of 6 hours of makeup for Bill. He worked with an opera coach to lower his voice an octave. There was a lot of work that went into him becoming Orlok.
I will just ask, I wanted to ask about you putting Ellen as the character front and centre in this one, and I really clocked the link between sexuality and, you know, etc. Why was that? Why was she, why did you see her as the centre?
I mean, she becomes the central protagonist in the Murnau film, like when Hutter comes home as a wet blanket from Transylvania, but, I thought it would just be much more exciting if it is her, you know, her story the whole time, and to kind of see that there were traces of Dracula and Nosferatu that were like a demon lover motif, and to go further with that, where you have this relationship and then the demon disappears and then he returns, you know, and that would be a nice way to tell the story.